Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Good morning. It is Friday, April 30th. Yeah, last day of April. Friday, April 30th, 2021. And, well, I'm not exactly certain what's going on today. I wasn't really... you know what? I was tired out from the week's worth of shows that I ended up having to do on my own because Joan was out on Tuesday on vacation. Well deserved, of course. Everybody who was out, had good reason to be out. And, of course, computer problems kept Greg Dworkin from joining us on Wednesday and Thursday. And now I think, by some indications anyway, the computer, or at least parts of it, appear to be working. But at any rate, I guess because he's got a Friday pundit roundup, Justice tells me over at, he goes, now I have my suspicions. But we might not be ready to have him back on the air on Friday, maybe the day that Abby gets to bark freely all over the house, or they tear off sheets of aluminum foil and do the laundry all day, all morning on Friday in celebration of the fact that they don't have to have the microphones on. But at any rate, it was quite a bit of wear and tear for me over the past couple of days. And in addition to which, Scott Anderson also with his own doctor's note or perfectly good excuse for whatever the hell was going on. I know, but I'm not going to blab it all over creation. But Scott was out for the middle part of the week as well. And so writing up the summaries fell to me as well. And I just kind of got tired out. And then actually I had another Zoom meeting that I was supposed to be present for last night, and I was like exhausted. And in my mind it was Friday, and I just sailed right past it. And so as the Friday show was coming, which traditionally there's occasionally guests lined up for it, but very often it's a 2-hour solo stint on a Friday, and it was just looking kind of grim. And of course, with our no drama, not Obama, but Biden administration in place, there wasn't likely to be anything super juicy happening or otherwise what the news media folks might say passes for excitement, like flagrant illegalities or anything like that. But I got this Twitter message late in the evening that renewed my interest in a Friday broadcast. I'll call it up for you, but our good friend Kurt, who tweets as Audible Video, had sent me this a tweet and then a follow-up in a mini thread, essentially. But let me know sometime yesterday evening, late at night. I think you're going to have a real Schadenfreude kind of show tomorrow. Well, that piqued my interest. And he alerted me because although I was not in the meeting I was supposed to be in, I was otherwise engaged. We were having a nice dinner, and I just sort of let my mind wander. I watched something on TV, which has been kind of interesting, and just really I wasn't keeping an eye on the news. So he told me, updated me last night on the Rudy Giuliani, Matt Gaetz, and Ron Johnson stories. And I had to click through, and some of them hadn't been developed into write-ups yet. They were just a series of tweets from the journalists working on the stories. And you can see why this might be of some interest. So where do we start? Well, I suppose we could start with, we can do a combination piece of, the write-up that I found on Giuliani also included information about Ron Johnson's situation. But basically, I guess we found out last night that Giuliani probably did some sort of, what he thought was some sort of self-help tour, speaking to Hannity, I think. the drill. He goes on Hannity and says how innocent he is, and then, of course, spills the beans on himself because he's an idiot, and he really doesn't know what the difference is between running his mouth and helping himself. He's long ago lost the ability to keep quiet on the quiet parts, and he thinks the incriminating parts are the parts that will exonerate him, and Hannity doesn't have it in him, I guess, to tell him otherwise. Anyway, apparently the following up on the search of his home and office, and as we read yesterday, the search of Victoria Tensing's home as well, and I guess office, we learned, well, basically, as Greg said this morning via Twitter, that basically everything we already knew is now all official. We now know that Giuliani was essentially wittingly or not, a tool of a foreign government, certainly a foreign agent, and to no one's surprise. And so was Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson's particular problem was that he, and we find out also Giuliani, in making their trips overseas to Russia and Ukraine, were, I guess, offered briefings by the FBI and other American officialdom about, all right, well, look, when a senior American official goes overseas to these countries, we have to brief you ahead of time. Like, what do you need to look out for? How are they going to try to exploit you or manipulate you in such a way that you will further their propaganda or espionage ends? And apparently Ron Johnson was having none of it. No, you can't tell me what to do. And then essentially fell prey to all the things that they said they were trying to warn him about. And did it anyway. Matt Gaetz, of course, has a totally different story, but he too, I guess, involved with somebody who, like Giuliani, decided to, I guess, work up notarized lists of all the crimes they had committed and kept it stored electronically someplace where it oughtn't to have been, essentially. Okay, let's see what we've got here. The Washington Post write-up we'll start with first on Giuliani, and I think they also get around to notes on Johnson. FBI warned Giuliani, key Trump ally, key Trump ally in Senate, that would be Johnson, of Russian disinformation campaign targeting Biden. What do you know? Ellen Nakashima, Shane Harris, and Tom Hamburger know all about it, so they were assigned the job of writing up for the Washington Post. The FBI warned Rudolph W. Giuliani, the Post going formal, like, well, okay, that's supposed to make you a serious newspaper or something. Anyway, they warned Rudy Giuliani in late 2019 that he was the target of a Russian influence operation aimed at circulating falsehoods intended to damage President Biden politically ahead of last year's election, according to people familiar with the matter. Now, of course, he's not going to believe that, and in fact, he's going to believe that the real Russian propaganda is to tell him that he's, is to send the FBI and try and warn him off of tracking down the real dirt on Biden so that the greatest president ever and the most serious threat to Russia ever, because he's tough, even though he loves Russia, Donald Trump could get reelected. And, that's just one of the things that comes from the way they screw with you in all intelligence operations, I guess. But, you have to be able to you got to have the mind to be able to entertain these possibilities, even when it might mean you're wrong. And Rudy Giuliani just never had that. Anyway, the warning was part of an extensive effort by the Bureau to alert members of Congress and at least one conservative media outlet, One America News, that they faced a risk of being used to further Russia's attempt to influence the election's outcome, said several current and former U.S. officials. All spoke on condition of anonymity because the matter remains highly sensitive. QAnon loons, Giuliani, and the like would all say, well, they spoke on condition of anonymity because they're lying in order to further their narrative that we have been manipulated by the Russians, when in fact it's they who have been manipulated by the Russians. The Russians manipulated them into thinking that the Russians were manipulating us. Don't you see? So then we shone a UV light on his forehead and looked at the black stuff dripping down his sideburns and something something. We'll get to the UV light later on in the show. Giuliani received the FBI's warning while deeply involved with former President Donald Trump's 2020 re-election campaign and related activities in Ukraine to surface unflattering or incriminating information about the Biden family. The revelation comes as the FBI this week seized Giuliani's cell phone and other electronic devices as part of a long-running criminal investigation into whether the one-time New York mayor and personal attorney, maybe sort of kind of, for Trump acted as an unregistered foreign agent. The warning, made by counterintelligence agents, was separate from the Justice Department's ongoing criminal probe, but it reflects a broader concern by U.S. intelligence and federal investigators that Giuliani, among other influential Americans and U.S. institutions, was being manipulated by the Russian government to promote its interests, and that he appears to have brazenly disregarded such fears. Despite the alert, Giuliani went forward in December of 2019 with a planned trip to Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, where he met with a Ukrainian lawmaker whom the U.S. government later labeled an active Russian agent, and sanctioned on grounds he was running an influence campaign against Biden. That operation, officials said, involved Ukrainian officials and political consultants who the U.S. intelligence community has since concluded were acting as Russian proxies not only to smear Biden and derail his candidacy, but also to curtail U.S. support for Ukraine. That's interesting. Why didn't they use whom in that instance? They used it earlier. The Ukrainian lawmaker whom the U.S. government later labeled. And then they say, where did they use this? Involved Ukrainian officials and political consultants whom, I thought, should that not also be whom the U.S. intelligence community has since concluded? Whom says since concluded? No, I guess not. Okay, well, I think they might be correct in that one. Just checking. All right. Giuliani's lawyer, Robert J. Costello, did not respond to requests for comment. Neither did the editor of this piece. An FBI spokeswoman declined to comment, and everybody declined to use the word whom. Okay. Let's see. I will, let's see. I just wanted to check up on something. Somebody else commenting on things along the way. Wanted to make sure I have things all correct here. The FBI last summer also gave what is known as a defensive briefing to Senator Ron Johnson. Here's his part, the Republican, of course, from Wisconsin, who ahead of the election used his perch as chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. What a position to be in, and then find yourself, targeted by Russian intelligence, right? Homeland Security. All right, well, he used his perch as chairman there, of course, to investigate Biden's dealings with Ukraine while he was vice president, and his son, Hunter Biden, held a lucrative seat on a board of a Ukrainian energy company. Johnson, a staunch Trump ally, recalled receiving a vague warning from FBI briefers in August, but he said Thursday that there was no substance to their cautionary message and that he did not view the meeting as a defensive briefing on his oversight of the Biden family's foreign business ventures. I suppose that's possible. They were giving me a defensive briefing on my trip to Russia, ahead of my trip to Russia, but they weren't giving me a defensive briefing with respect to my oversight of this so-called investigation. I guess you could separate those in your mind. Regarding reports that I received an FBI briefing warning me that I was the target of Russian disinformation, I can confirm I received such a briefing in August of 2020. Okay. Johnson said in a statement to the Washington Post, I asked the briefers what specific evidence they had regarding this warning, and they could not provide me anything other than a generalized warning. Without specific information, I felt the briefing was completely useless and unnecessary, since I was fully aware of the dangers of Russian disinformation. Yeah, but it's working on you. That's what we're saying. Oh, you're saying that in general, Russian disinformation can work? Well, I mean, we're saying that too, but specifically that it's working on you. Well, it can't be working on me because I'm me and I'm very smart. I won't fall for Russian disinformation because of how smart I am. Now, you're telling me that other people do fall for Russian disinformation? I know that. This is a useless briefing. I mean, I guess that's where he's coming from. Because there was no substance to the briefing, and because it followed the production and leaking of a false intelligence product by Democrat leaders, I suspected that the briefing was being given to be used at some future date for the purpose that it is now being used, to offer the biased media an opportunity to falsely accuse me of being a tool of Russia despite warnings, which he is. I mean, he's correct about that in the sense that, yeah, if you ignore the briefing and go on operating as a Russian intelligence asset, we will eventually say, well, we warned the guy that he was going to be used as a Russian intelligence asset, and he ignored us. Aha! Well, I suspected that you would say I ignored you and use it against me. Therefore, it can't be used against me. Well, it still can. Now, you can try and convince people on your side that it's all a setup, but it's a pretty classic setup because you seem to be hitting all the check marks here on the list. Well, okay. He's just stubborn is all. And really, honestly, if somebody comes to you, I mean, it would be difficult, right? If somebody came to you and said, I understand you think you've come to your worldview honestly, but I have to tell you that a lot of the information that you're basing your worldview on has come to you as Russian disinformation. And I know it doesn't feel that way, because nobody came to you and said, I have information for you. Listen to this. And then gave you something that seemed obviously stupid. It all was quite natural at the time, I'm sure. It felt quite trustworthy. But imagine somebody comes to you and says, everything you think about this is actually upside down and backwards and was planted in your head by Russian operatives. You'd probably be skeptical. But on the other hand, if we could just be rid of this horrible Dunning-Kruger syndrome that infects the higher ranks of the Republican Party, maybe we would have, more introspection, more flexibility, more possibility that somebody could say, I'd better consider the possibility that what I know isn't quite right. But we're not going to get that. No, we're not going to get it from a lot of people. It's a tough thing to do, I'm sure. Johnson and staffers, we return to the article, staffers to Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa, another Trump ally in the Senate who aided Johnson with his probe, said that in separate briefings earlier in 2020, FBI officials assured them there was no reason to discontinue their inquiry into Hunter Biden's work in Ukraine. It is not the Bureau's place to tell lawmakers what to investigate or not, or whether to start or stop an investigation, former FBI officials said. The senators suspected that the younger Biden's position with the Ukrainian firm posed a conflict of interest to his father's role shaping U.S. policy toward Ukraine and created impediments for U.S.-backed anti-corruption efforts in the country. Their investigation ended last fall with a report concluding that Hunter Biden's position with Burisma was problematic, but did not influence his father's work or Obama administration policy toward Ukraine. So, there you have it. There's your own conclusion. Now, the people who told you that it did influence his father's work and Obama administration policy toward Ukraine are wrong. Stop listening to them. No, I will continue to listen to them and accept free trips to Russia from them. Well, now you've stepped in it. Defensive briefings are given to people to alert them that they are being targeted by foreign governments for malign purposes, former officials said. But they're also used to see how they respond to that, said Frank Figliuzzi, a former senior FBI counterintelligence official. They're now on notice. And I guess that could create some suspicion too, right? Well, we don't really necessarily think that you are a foreign intelligence asset, wittingly or otherwise. But we're giving you a defensive briefing to see how you would react to being told that you've been targeted. And if that makes you furtive and nervous and you start skulking about, we might suspect that that was an indication that you think we're onto you. And that despite the fact that you denied that you were participating in a Russian intelligence scheme, you are now exhibiting evidence that you are in fact participating in it, but trying to cover it up. That would be, the other I guess, use of a defensive briefing. Anyway, maybe they were using that because I think everybody suspected he was, in fact, a Russian intelligence asset. But I think unwittingly. Giuliani's electronic devices, back to that stuff, were seized by authorities on Wednesday in searches of his Manhattan home and office as part of the federal investigation into whether he had acted as an unregistered foreign agent for Ukraine. The probe centers on Giuliani's interactions with Ukrainian figures ahead of November's election as he sought information that might undermine Joe Biden and lobbied for the ouster of the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, while also pressing Ukrainian officials to announce an inquiry into Biden. Trump abruptly removed the ambassador in May of 2019, but Ukraine did not launch an investigation into the Bidens. Giuliani, a former Manhattan U.S. attorney, has emphatically denied any wrongdoing, and his attorney on Wednesday accused federal investigators of ignoring, quote, clear evidence of what he alleged was not his own client's innocence, but rather Hunter Biden's failure to register as a foreign agent, and the Biden family taking millions in bribes to sell Biden's public offices. Sure, okay, fine. Whataboutism isn't actually a defense in court, though. But they're not in court when he says it. Costello also said Giuliani never peddled disinformation on the Bidens. During his December 2019 trip to Kyiv, Giuliani was accompanied by a team from One American News, which has described itself as one of Trump's greatest supporters, which also means they're not news. But the network later produced a documentary series based on the trip. The networks did not address questions about the FBI's briefing, but it did provide a statement attributed to an unidentified network spokesman expressing pride in its investigation of the Bidens in Ukraine. We stand by our reporting, highlighting Hunter Biden's financial windfall relationship with Burisma and VP Joe Biden's efforts to have a prosecutor general fired to protect alleged wrongdoing by his son Hunter, the statement said, referring to unproven allegations made by some Ukrainian officials. The statement acknowledged that the Treasury Department sanctioned a Ukrainian lawmaker interviewed by the network last year, but the statement said OAN's interviews were prior to the sanctions, and the reasons for sanctions were unknown to OAN at the time of the interviews. But now we know exactly what they were, and you can admit you made a mistake, and you didn't know that they were Russian intelligence operatives. Now you do, but instead you say, well, we interviewed them before they were punished for being intelligence agents, so therefore something. No, they were intelligence agents, and that's why they gave you a defensive briefing, but you rejected it. On his trip to Kyiv, Giuliani met with Andrei Derkach, a politician sanctioned by the United States in September and accused by the Treasury Department of having been an active Russian agent for over a decade and maintaining close connections with Russian intelligence services. Derkach, who attended a KGB academy in Moscow, has denied involvement with any foreign intelligence agency and any illegal activities. But if you attend KGB Academy, that's kind of false. Anyway, in late 2019, before the trip to Kyiv, U.S. intelligence agencies warned the Trump White House that Giuliani was the target of a Russian influence operation, as the Post reported last year. Officials became concerned after obtaining evidence, including communications intercepts, that showed Giuliani was interacting with people tied to Russian intelligence. The warnings led then National Security Advisor Robert C. O'Brien to caution Trump that any information Giuliani brought back from Ukraine should be considered contaminated by Russia. But instead, I think they packed it up in envelopes and delivered it immediately to Devin Nunes, as I recall. Despite the FBI warning, Giuliani met with Derkach again in New York in February of 2020 when he hosted Derkach on a podcast. So they recorded their crimes. In the podcast, Derkach aired false allegations that billions of dollars in U.S. aid to Ukraine were misused or went missing while Joe Biden was handling the administration's Ukraine portfolio. Costello has said Giuliani did not rely on Derkach for material, there's no but there. Since Biden's victory, the National Intelligence Council, an analytic arm of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, has concluded that Russian President Vladimir Putin and other senior officials in Moscow sought to influence the 2020 election. They did so by spreading misleading information about Biden through prominent individuals, including some who were close to former President Trump, according to an ODNI report issued in March. The report did not identify the individuals by name, but several current and former officials confirmed at the time that Giuliani was among them. The primary narrative that the Kremlin sought to promote, alleging corrupt ties between the Bidens and Ukraine, dated back to at least 2014, the intelligence report said. To distance themselves from the disinformation, the Russian spy services relied on Ukrainian individuals, including Derkash, the report said. Derkash and others sought to use prominent U.S. persons and media conduits to launder their narratives to U.S. officials and audiences, the report said. These Russian proxies met with and provided materials to Trump administration-linked U.S. persons to advocate for formal investigation and attempted to make contact with several senior U.S. officials. Johnson said, oh my goodness, for whatever reason, no matter how many times you hit this button to lower the volume and mute your ringer, sometimes it just doesn't want to cooperate. And that's one of these times. Okay, almost time then for a break. And I think we're getting towards the end of the article here. Senator Johnson, said he never met or spoke with Derkash, but he and his staff met with another Ukrainian official, former diplomat Andrei Telezenko, who pushed the unfounded allegation that it was Ukraine rather than Russia that interfered in the 2016 U.S. election. Johnson has not discussed that meeting publicly, but he did carry that narrative forward. Last year, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon alleged that Johnson was seeking to give credibility to disinformation advanced by Derkash and Telezenko for the sole purpose of aiding Trump's re-election. What a huge surprise. We'll be back with the conclusion of this story next. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning. I have good news to report. Many more listeners like you are making critical contributions that keep our show on the air. Makes good sense, of course, and patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it simple. Now you can make easy, secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. Maybe you'd like to thank us for helping keep you sane during the Trump era. Maybe you're looking forward to in-depth explanations of what's going on in the Biden administration. Whatever it is that keeps you listening, we need your help to keep bringing it to you. And hey, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running with those options too. Thanks again, everyone, for all of your support. We literally could not do this without you. All right, sorry about that. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Roots Radio. I got a late start with the music for the outro, and that has confused me with the timing of the re-entry, but I think we've got it now. And, all right, here we go. Let's continue with the article. We're getting towards the end of this piece that covers 2 of the 3 worst people in the world and the extraordinary amount of trouble they now find themselves in. Where were we with this? Yes, Ron Wyden last year alleging that Ron Johnson, was seeking to give credibility to disinformation advanced by these 2 yahoos, Derkash and Telezenko, for the sole purpose of aiding Trump's re-election. Johnson has said his staff vetted the reliability of Telezenko's information and rejected Wyden's assertion. Well, that will happen. But sometimes you're just flat wrong. I mean, when you get in a situation like that and one side says, well, the person you're talking to is a Russian operative and they're planting Russian disinformation with you. And you say, no, the person that is here is not a Russian agent and this is not disinformation. One of the 2 of you has to be wrong about that, I think. And, well, it's 50-50, absent any other information, that it could be you. But to never entertain that at all, I can understand publicly. But privately, I don't think that there's any private inner monologue going on in Ron Johnson's head. So nothing you can do about that. As part of his committee's investigation, Johnson and 2 Republican colleagues considered subpoenaing Telezenko to testify. At Senate Democrats' request, the FBI, in March of 2020, briefed Johnson's panel and 2 other committees on Telezenko's background and motives. As a result, both Republican and Democratic lawmakers urged Johnson to refrain from issuing the subpoena, which is to say, both Republican and Democratic lawmakers on a bipartisan basis, right? Because we love that. We fetishize bipartisan basis. Told Johnson essentially, Ron, it looks to me like there's at least a good possibility that you're just in the wrong here. And that the truth is that the FBI has got it right, and Telezenko might not be a reliable witness, and we're going to look like idiots if we subpoena him and try to carry the ball forward, either for him or let him try to carry the ball forward for us, however you want to describe it. Don't do it. And I guess he didn't. And yet he says, but I was right. He's not a Russian agent and this isn't disinformation. But for some unknown reason, I'm still not going to subpoena Telezenko like I think we should do. Not because I'm wrong, but because I'm nearby other people who are wrong or something. And therefore, I don't know. I mean, I wonder what the explanation is. Telezenko has also met several times with Giuliani, appearing on his podcast and facilitating his December 2019 trip to Ukraine. This is why I don't have guests on the show. I hate when they come on and say, let's talk about your crimes. I try not to do crimes, but, it's one or the other. And look, it's either crimes or guests. And in the final analysis, I prefer the crimes, I guess, though I can't think of what any of them are. This past January, in the waning days of the Trump administration, the Treasury Department sanctioned Telezenko as well for his role in trying to influence the 2020 election. He has denied any involvement in Russian interference or disinformation operations and denied working with Derkach. This month, the Biden administration imposed economic sanctions on 32 entities and individuals for Russian government attempts to influence November's election. So there you have it. Ron Johnson got fooled. Not hard to imagine. Rudy Giuliani got fooled. Also not hard to imagine. I guess Giuliani last night, as part of his appearance, I think, again, with Hannity, did I see, was it possibly Josh Marshall talking about this? Is the sort of thing he would muse about late at night. Let me look through what he had to say about that and see if I can find it. But yeah, he was basically saying or laughing that Giuliani, I guess, in his appearance last night was saying, well, I am not guilty of being an unregistered foreign agent, foreign lobbyist for Russia or Ukraine or anyone else because, he's trying to lawyer his way out of it. I had a clause in my contracts, which I signed with anybody that I worked with, that specifically said that I was not a lobbyist and I was not lobbying or doing lobbying work on your behalf because I didn't want to register as a lobbyist. Except, of course, the big problem here is that, just declaring the thing I'm doing is not a crime doesn't really help. I mean, you also have to not do the crime in order to be able to, not be found guilty of it under the theory of our system here anyway. We don't really necessarily think that the system always gets it right, but yeah, you can't just sort of put in there, P.S., this is not a crime, and then have everybody just walk away and say, all right, it's not a crime. It says so right in his contract. I can't find that particular tweet, but I guess it's probably should be around here in his. Maybe it wasn't Josh Marshall, because there were certainly plenty of people laughing about that last night, just sort of insisting that he was totally innocent of any crime because something. Maybe it is here. I don't know. It might have been, it looks like with the screen cap that he was on Tucker Carlson's show. He may also have done Hannity. I don't know. It might have been a tour, as I earlier suspected was the case. But, I don't know. Yeah, I don't see Josh Marshall's, that particular comment, but that's, it's verifiable enough. I guess if we search around, we can find out who it was that said it. I think it's kind of a minor point in all of this. All right, let's see. Where do we go next? I got Matt Gaetz, which everyone is enjoying, and I got the Arizona so-called audit in in Arizona of the Maricopa County ballots. And I'm not sure which is the more ridiculous. I think it's been a while since we updated the Matt Gaetz story. And this story on him just appears to be so much fun that maybe we'll just go in that direction. Let's see. Why is this not popping up in Pocket? I'm pretty sure that I had the Daily Beast's latest story on it, but maybe not. There it is. Ooh, yuck. It's got Matt Gaetz' face in it and everything with this weird overwash of, I don't know, like a lime green color. Really just not his color. It's not on his color wheel. That's all I'm saying. All right. Let me just catch up with the worst stuff on Matt Gaetz. Okay, so the news story, which I'm sure blah, 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 everyone will deny, et cetera, et cetera. And it does come with a grain of salt because it involves Roger Stone. And I already saw last night people saying, well, Roger Stone, he's quite the dirty trickster. I guess we should make sure that this isn't some sort of faked up document, too juicy to be true, that everyone runs with. And then they say, ha, I got you. I spread rumors that Matt Gaetz was a filthy pervert, and you believed them. And somehow that's a win for me. I never really quite understood that story, but it is something that apparently he's fond of doing. Oh, now let's see. I was all set to scroll through this story, and it was letting me too. And then I guess I waited too long, and it decided I had to become a member of Daily Beast in order to get this story. However, fear not, it is in Pocket, and we can read it that way, which is just as well, even though I feel like I'm stealing people's stories when they do that. But they were offering it to me to read. I just waited too long to read it. I don't know. That doesn't seem fair to me. All right, a confession letter is what's at stake here. A confession letter written by Joel Greenberg, who's a real genius in all this, in the final months of the Trump presidency, claims that he and close associate Representative Matt Gaetz paid for sex with multiple women, as well as a girl who was 17 at the time, just like we thought. Why would you write such a confession letter? And the apparent answer is to, I guess Roger Stone at some point maybe hints to them. I'll read through the whole story, but it sounded last night like he had hinted to Greenberg, well, fess up to all the stuff that you and Gaetz have been doing, and I'll wrangle you a pardon from Trump. And at that point, why wouldn't you believe that you would get a pardon from Trump? That seems kind of straightforward. I think everybody believed that they were going to get pardons from Trump. And it might have just been clever thinking from Roger Stone, like a great way to stay in power is if you find yourself consistently surrounded by dirty perverts and other cheaters of various stripes, you might as well use that and get them to believe that you can get them a confession. If they will give you a signed confession letter, you're just walking around with all sorts of power over those people, and you might, in fact, want to seek a pardon for them at some point if they, I don't know, do you a favor or pay you enough money or agree to have sex with you and your wife, say, something like that. Or you might do nothing with it. Could be totally innocent. Can't tell with Roger Stone. But in case you were wondering, like, well, why would there be a confession letter? I think he really thought he was going to get a pardon of some kind. On more than one occasion, the letter begins, this individual, we're talking about the 17-year-old, was involved in sexual activities with several of the other girls, the congressman from Florida's, I guess it's formatted this way. This is what the comma means. This individual was involved in sexual activities with several of the other girls, the congressman from Florida's 1st Congressional District, and myself, Greenberg wrote in reference to the 17-year-old. I mean, just psychologically, he's trying to distance himself from this girl, even in his confession letter, which is really something to behold. I mean, the proper construction of this is, on more than one occasion, I, Matt Gaetz, and several of the other girls had sex with this 17-year-old girl. That's the straightforward way of saying it. But he puts himself in there last. I mean, he's actually like distancing himself in the spacing inside the sentence. It's quite a psychological study. From time to time, gas money or gifts, rent, or partial tuition payments were made to several of these girls, including the individual who was not yet 18. All this, I mean, it's like the most passive construction of everything. And the individual who was not yet 18, like later she became 18, so it's okay. Anyway, I did see the acts occur firsthand, and Venmo transactions, Cash App, or other payments were made to these girls on behalf of the congressman. The letter, which the Daily Beast recently obtained, and, that's probably not his intention, was written after Greenberg, who was under federal indictment, asked Roger Stone to help him secure a pardon from then President Donald Trump. And, I mean, just to pause to say, imagine thinking that you were going to get that. Everybody, I guess, thought that it was entirely possible. I guess really imagine thinking that that was right, that you had a right to expect that you would, in fact, get a pardon from the sitting president of the United States because you were a filthy pervert. I mean, I don't know. It's not the filthiest kind, I guess, necessarily. It's just a weird situation. But look, with regard to the 17-year-old, you're a criminal. I mean, that's bad news. And if your sexual activities are criminalized, okay. Sometimes we criminalize the wrong things. That's true. There was a time when certain otherwise now widely accepted practices were, for political reasons, criminalized. But I think we're still stuck on that one about the certain age thing. Like, we really haven't gotten over that, and there's no sign of that being liberalized in any way. So, especially not on behalf of family values, Republicans, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, just imagine thinking, well, I have this sex trafficking ring, and this congressman and I love to drink and whatever else and carouse with the youngest possible legal women, and sometimes we cross the line and carouse with illegal underage women as well. And this is the sort of thing that the President of the United States very well might, and frankly should, pardon as, a part of his regular executive clemency review. Because for the good of the country, we should be able to put this aside. The national nightmare of putting me and my friend on trial for our sexual proclivities of trafficking in underage girls seems like a tragedy the country should be spared. Don't you think? I think so. I just can't imagine believing that about myself, doing what he's doing. A series of private messages starting in late 2020, also recently obtained by the Daily Beast, shows a number of exchanges between Greenberg and Stone conducted over the encrypted messaging app Signal, with communications set to disappear. However, Greenberg appears to have taken screenshots of a number of their conversations. Kind of the opposite of the purpose of Signal, but it's not a smart guy. If I get you $250K in Bitcoin, $250,000 in Bitcoin, would that help? Or is this not a financial matter? Greenberg wrote to Stone, one message shows. By the way, what do you think the answer to something like that is from someone like Roger Stone? Well, I don't know. Let me think about that. Yeah, I think it would help. I think it would. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. Let's put it that way. But, wow. What's the rest of this conversation? I understand all of this and have taken it into consideration, Stone replied. I will know more in the next 24 hours. I cannot push too hard because of the nonsense surrounding pardons. The nonsense. Like, we shouldn't give pardons to every pervert who just happens to be a Trump supporter when they're busted dead to rights. That's the nonsense surrounding pardons. I hope you were prepared to wire me $250,000 because I am feeling confident, Stone wrote to Greenberg on January 13th. I guess my big question now, and I don't know if it's revealed in any of this, but my question as an investigator would next be, is $250,000 the price that Stone charges to be a conduit for the pardons to convey them to Trump, in which case, he would be guilty of running that bribery scheme? Or is $250,000 or some portion of that money the fee that Trump expected to be paid in order to execute pardons on behalf of people who he, trusts to convey him the right names, like Roger Stone? It's a worthy question. In a text message to the Daily Beast, Stone said that Greenberg had hired, I'm reading it wrong. Had tried to hire him to. There's the two. Stone said that Greenberg had tried to hire him to assist with a pardon, but he denied asking for or receiving payment or interceding on his behalf. He did, however, confirm that he had Greenberg prepare a document explaining his prosecution. No explanation here of the message reading, "I hope you are prepared to wire me $250,000. That still goes unexplained. In the private text messages to Stone, Greenberg described his activities with Gates, repeatedly referring to the Republican congressman by his initials, MG, or as Matt, because he's doing a great job hiding the evidence here. "My lawyers that I fired know the whole story about MG's involvement," Greenberg wrote to Stone on December 21st. "They know he paid me to pay the girls and that he and I both had sex with the girl who was underage." That seems like a terrible thing to confess to in writing or otherwise. And by the way, it does provide us a little bit of information for how to parse it when Matt Gaetz says things like, hold on, I got a thought about this, but when Matt Gaetz says things like, "I never paid for sex," you can, of course, it doesn't take a great deal of imagination to figure this out. Like, "I paid for travel and hotel rooms where we had sex," or stuff like that. Or the even bigger dodge of, "I never paid for sex. I paid Greenberg, and Greenberg and I never had sex." Now, I paid Greenberg, and Greenberg paid the girls so that I could have sex with them. But I never paid for sex. I paid Greenberg for brokerage services in his trafficking operation, you see. I was going to say, though, the thought that I had about this was, I sort of wonder, like, again, it's difficult to get inside the heads of people like this, but if you're a guy who's involved in paying for trafficked underage girls for sex, and we'll add to that, and you're a United States congressman. So first of all, you're like, I'm in the Congress. It's a very important position, a position of responsibility and trust. The time is now for me to start buying trafficked girls for sex. And then you go ahead and you do it. And then you're asked about it. I guess this is the part that's really amazing to me. Do you then say, well, what I should say is I never paid for sex. I shouldn't just deny the whole thing. The whole story's a fabrication. I didn't have sex with anybody, any of these women or underage girls or anything of the sort. It's ludicrous. I'm just not involved in that sort of thing. And the whole story is a fabrication. I haven't had sex with anybody but my long-term partner or whichever, whatever it is, or just say nothing about that. But I guess I'm curious about the mindset where you say, well, I better not lie now. Now is really just not the time. I'm a member of Congress. I'm in a position of public trust. I'm in extraordinary trouble with the law, possibly. I've done all these horrible, terrible things. Now is not the time to also get involved in misleading the press, which is not even an actual crime. So I guess I'm confused about that. Every time I parse something like that and say, well, he didn't say that he didn't actually do these things. He says, I never paid for sex, but that's just a dodge. And then I realize, who the hell cares whether he's dodging or not? He's, appears to be guilty of trafficking in underage girls for sex. That's the serious thing. Of course he's going to deny it, but look at how carefully he denies it so he doesn't get a perjury charge on top of everything else, except you can't get charged with perjury for saying something, untrue to the press. You're just a jerk. But, they could use that to impeach you in cross-examination, but but whatever. It won't lead to a perjury charge. So I guess, maybe we're overthinking it when we try to analyze things this way. I mean, can you imagine thinking, well, I did do this statutory rape, but you can't pin the lie on me. I didn't say I didn't do this. I said I didn't do that. You see? So I suspect that maybe we're spending too much time on this. Anyway, right. There was the lawyers that he fired know everything. That's dangerous. As part of the effort to obtain a pardon, Greenberg wrote multiple drafts of his confession letter. Wow. The Daily Beast obtained 2 typed versions and an earlier handwritten one. I wonder if the story changes at all. Certified forensic document examiner and handwriting expert Wendy Carlson compared the letter to writing samples obtained through 2 public records requests. She said it was her professional expert opinion that the person who authored a 2019 financial disclosure for Joel Greenberg, as well as Greenberg's 2020 Board of Elections form, was the same as the author of that letter. The person who authored the forms has been identified as the person who authored the letter, Carlson said. In those letters, Greenberg detailed his relationship with Gates. He confessed to paying young women for sex, and he claimed that he, Gates, and others had sex with a minor they believed to be 19 at the time. Greenberg said he learned she was underage on September 4th, 2017, from, quote, an anonymous tip, and quickly contacted Gates. The anonymous tip was she probably asked him for a fake ID, and he said, what do you need a fake ID for? You're 19. And she said, I need to be 21 or whatever. I don't know. And then it turned out she was 17. I got no idea. The anonymous tip was probably nothing anonymous at all. Like, I'm 17. Isn't that awesome? Don't you want to pay extra? You should pay me $1,000 more because of the huge risk involved in this. Oh, geez. Anyway, it doesn't really matter where the information came from, so long as it's true. Immediately, I called the congressman and warned him to stay clear of this person and informed him she was underage, Greenberg wrote. He was equally shocked and disturbed by this revelation, which was mostly, I'm sure, oh no, I could get a statutory rape charge pinned on me. Not like, oh no, I've done a terrible thing. Why am I involving myself with people that I think are 19 even? None of that, I'm sure, occurred to them. So he immediately warned him to stay clear of this person. Now, later on in the story, we find out that stay clear of this person meant wait till she's 18 and then try to F her again. Pay to F her again. Anyway, so that's the equal shock, you see. Greenberg continued in the handwritten draft that he confronted the then 17-year-old, that's in quotes, confronted the then 17-year-old and explained to her how serious of a situation this was. How many people she put in danger? The answer is 2. I mean, besides herself. 2. Matt Gates and Joel Greenberg. But maybe he's going to be like, oh, well, we're connected. It's going to bring Trump down. She apologized and recognized that by lying about her age, she endangered many people. He continued, there was no further contact with this individual. Now, the period should fall there. That should be it. There was no further contact with this individual. But it doesn't. The period falls after the next phrase. Until after her 18th birthday. Hooray! We had a party. Happy birthday to you. I can traffic you for sex. I guess they sang at that point because after she reached the age of legal consent in Florida, Greenberg reestablished contact. I'm warning you, steer clear of this person. What did he say? Yeah, stay clear of this person for another couple of months, and then we can pay her for sex after that, you see. So they reestablished contact. As the Daily Beast previously reported, about 5 months after her 18th birthday, I'm surprised they waited that long, Gates sent Greenberg $900 in 2 Venmo transactions, one titled Test and the other titled Crime, Need to Rape Child. No, he might as well, but he instead, she was an adult at the time, of course. The one was titled Test and the other was titled Hit Up Blank. The blank contained a nickname for this girl, and Greenberg paid her and 2 other women a total of $900 about 6 hours later. Isn't that great? I mean, by the way, good covering of tracks. Venmo me exactly how much money that we need to pay these 2 women for sex, or 3 women, I guess, and then I will Venmo that exact amount later on. For criminal purposes, try to mix that up a little bit and vary the amounts and get paid back later in other systems if you can. Make it difficult for the forensic accountants. I would advise you if you wanted to, traffic in children, let's say. But don't. I would advise you of that first. Yes. That would be my first advice. Next, would be about the accounting systems. I like that too. Hit up blank. The blank contained a nickname for this girl. I'm gathering that it's probably kind of a filthy nickname that maybe she didn't appreciate. Or, it could be used as an identifier. There's many reasons to leave that out. But that's just nice. That's so spectacularly clean and upstanding. In his confession letter, Greenberg also admitted he facilitated Gates's interactions with college students and paid them on his behalf. Pimped. All of the girls were in college or post-college. Post-college. Okay. They were in post-college. No, they were in college or had graduated from college. He's not a real writer, And it was not uncommon for either myself or the congressman to help anyone, and one word incorrectly, anyone of these girls financially, whether it was a car payment, a flight home to see their family, because family is important to them. They have family values, And the girls may well have family values, but these gentlemen have family values. So you can see why that was important to them. Or something as simple as helping to pay a speeding ticket, Greenberg wrote. So I like that too. Like, by the way, here's some more illegality we'll just throw in there. It wasn't just us being criminals. The girls were criminals too. They were getting speeding tickets and we would help pay that. What specificity? All right, well, there's more disgustingness and we might as well return to it because, hey, it's Friday. And you might need to know, if I ever get elected to Congress as a Republican from Florida or any other state, how disgusting can I be and how should I go about doing it? All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We dive back into the sick underbelly of Florida political life for Republicans, Matt Gaetz in particular. Wow, what a man. A partial record, the story in the Daily Beast continues, of Greenberg's Venmo and Cash App transactions suggests that payments were usually for a lot more than, quote, gas money. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The Daily Beast identified more than 150 Venmo payments from Greenberg to women, as well as more than 70 additional payments on the Cash App that were generally between $300 and $500, though some exceeded $1,000 for some unknown reason. The Daily Beast also talked to 12 of the more than 40 different women who received money, because family values, and they all said they understood Greenberg was paying them, at least in part, for sex. What a fun... it's nice that they have such an open and honest relationship. It's not family values, but okay. I don't know. Maybe Matt Gaetz never said he was for family values, but I bet he did. Greenberg, a disgraced local politician in Florida, currently faces a sweeping 33-count indictment that ranges from stalking to sex trafficking. In March, the New York Times revealed that the initial investigation into the Seminole County tax official expanded as agents looked into his role in arranging paid sexual encounters for his friend, Matt Gaetz. He's just a friend of mine. I just like to gift him paid sexual encounters. That's just a normal thing that two guys who are his friends do for one another. Just procure sex partners in exchange for money, and I'm just intimately involved in the arrangement of those things for you because that's what friends do for one another. They select all sex partners for their contemporaries. I've never in my life been involved in anything that ever even approached that. I don't know what to say. Okay, federal prosecutors have not criminally charged Gaetz. They're toying with him, of course, or even publicly confirmed the expansion of their probe. Although he's, in a roundabout way, confirmed the expansion of his own probe, but whatever. While Gaetz acknowledges the existence of the investigation, he denies having sex with an underage teen. But at some point, Greenberg began to cooperate with investigators, a development his lawyer, not the one he's fired, but the new one, I guess, has suggested poses a serious problem for Gates. That defense lawyer, Fritz Scheller, who I think I mistook for Trump's dead doctor at some point, they look a little bit alike, Fritz Schiller declined to comment for this story, citing attorney-client privilege. I mean, you could just say, I don't want to talk to you, but okay. Gates' office did not respond. However, Logan Circle Group, an outside public relations firm Gates has hired, sent the following statement. And I think Logan Circle Group is that lunatic Harlan Hill. I'm not sure about that, but I think it rings a bell. It's familiar. And by the way, where do you think Logan Circle Group is located? They're very creative guys. So this is the team you want to hire. I guess if you're hiring a PR firm, I guess maybe it's what would you think of this? I mean, how could you, here's a PR spin for you, right? Like on the one hand, let's say I have Acme public relations firm, and I'm vying for your business against Logan Circle Group, and it comes to my attention it's Logan Circle Group. I guess I could say to you, well, look, if you are trying to spin your way out of sex trafficking minors, you're going to need a really creative mind to do this thing right. I mean, you're going to need to make up some serious whoppers here. So let me ask you, does this other PR group have what it takes? Do they have the imagination? Do they have the chops to do this? They are, after all, called the Logan Circle Group. What's their address? 3 Logan Circle? Right. I mean, it makes sense and all. That's fine, right? Like if you're going to name a sandwich shop, you want the Logan Circle Sandwich Shop, because if people want sandwiches, they're not going to want to look all over creation for where is the shop that I like, the yummy sandwich shop. That doesn't tell me anything. Logan Circle Sandwich Shop. Okay, that makes some sense. Now, but if you're looking for imagination, right? Now, what you really need is, but on the other hand, you could say, well, what I really need is to convey an image of honesty. I'm not being honest. They're not being honest, but they're conveying an image of honesty, because if you look under the hood, you will find that this Logan Circle, the so-called Logan Circle Group, is in fact, what? Bam! Located in Logan Circle, just like they told you. These guys are truth tellers. So I guess you could spin it either way. I am in the wrong business, by the way. Okay. Congressman Gates, here's the statement from Logan Circle Group, the truth tellers. Congressman Gates has never paid for sex, nor has he had sex with a 17-year-old as an adult. Which is his, it's funny too. Gates probably insisted in that too, right? Well, we're going to say Congressman Gates has never paid for sex, nor has he had sex with a 17-year-old. And Gates was like, well, no, listen, we don't want to spin this. I mean, if you had sex with a 17-year-old, we don't want to mention it at all. Well, I do. I mean, I was also 17 at the time. I was getting lots of girls, And I'm sure he wasn't saying girls either. I was getting it all the time. I'm a super stud. You got to put in there that I totally had sex with 17-year-olds when I was 17. In fact, I had sex with 17-year-olds when I was 15. I was such a super stud. Put that in there. No, don't. Okay. Anyway, so that's the line as they came up. And Harlan Hill is the kind of person who would agree to this. Oh, that's so cool you had sex. I wish. All right. Anyway, Congressman Gates has never paid for sex. He just paid his friend to cover the costs of sex. Nor has he ever had sex with a 17-year-old when he wasn't also 17 because of his studliness. We are now 1 month after your outlet. He's mad at you. After your outlet and others first reported such lies, and no one has gone on record to directly accuse him of either. Politico, however, has reported Mr. Greenberg threatening to make false accusations against others, which seems noteworthy for your story and in fact sounds like the entirety of your story. Congressman Gates has had no role in advocating for or against a pardon for Greenberg. He did have a role in that one. And doubts such a pardon was ever even considered. The Politico article referred to in the statement does not say Greenberg was threatening to make false accusations against others, but does say that an associate claimed Greenberg had warned friends that everyone is going to need a lawyer. Eventually. Right? Hey, look, that's true of everyone. Neither the U.S. Secret Service nor federal prosecutors with the Middle District of Florida would provide comment for this article either, citing a policy of not confirming or denying the existence of an ongoing investigation. I'm sorry, the U.S. Secret Service? What? How did they even get into it? Anyway, in the final months of the Trump presidency, Greenberg and Stone exchanged several texts about a pardon over the encrypted messaging signal app. Messaging app Signal. How did I get that? I almost did that last time too, didn't I? Anyway, while images show that the pair frequently set messages to automatically delete, Greenberg regularly took screenshots of their communications. Stone, who received a presidential commutation in July, but at the time had not yet been fully pardoned, communicated with Greenberg for months about the latter's desire for a pardon. The messages show that in November, the pair discussed putting together a, quote, document, which later took the form of a confession letter and background missive about all the ways in which Greenberg had been loyal to Trump. In their early conversations, Greenberg told Stone that the letter was about 8 to 10 pages and asked if it should be shortened. Your life should be shortened, buddy. That's amazing. That's so 8 to 10 pages of confession, plus, of course, recitations of the ways in which he had been loyal to Trump. And I do wonder, like, what would Trump's reaction to something like this be? I mean, I know he loves reading about how people are loyal to him and stuff. And I imagine he also loves reading about how they're perverts as well, for a number of reasons. One of which is, now I have power over them, blackmail-wise. And two, that's a good idea. Maybe I should do some of these things. I got to get one of these bitcoins and start effing chicks, I guess. Anyway, this is all possible. But do you think it ever bothered him at all? I mean, he might not just have that gene, but do you think it ever bothered Trump to say, you know, it disturbs me how filthy my loyalist supporters are, my most loyal supporters, I guess I should say, but they are loyalists. But yeah, there's no such word as loyalist. Most loyal supporters in the world who will do anything for me. Look at all these things that he lists as being loyal for me, to impress me. But at the same time, there's 8 pages of rape in here, which, you know, maybe with Trump, like, yeah. Oh, and then he gave it to her that way too. Oh boy, you know, he's real excited about reading about these allegations of rape. Isn't it great that my most loyal fans are so filthy and disgusting? Maybe it makes me look better by comparison, or hotter because I'm with more aggressive dudes who totally get it all the time. They just grab them by the whatever, you know. All right, I can't figure out where Trump's head is either. These guys don't have like regular normal brains. We can't. And by the way, when it's all said and done, you know. Bipartisan compromise with these guys, please? No, I don't think so. That's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen for a number of reasons. But just policy alone, it's not going to happen. But also, these guys are like from a criminal planet. I don't know how to, you know, deal with the idea. I wouldn't want to compromise with these people. I'd feel bad if I erased child poverty with their help. That's how bad these people are. I mean, I guess I'd take the deal because child poverty, that's important. I want to get rid of that. But you worked with a filthy, disgusting pervert who's raping the kids. Well, that's bad also, and I want to prosecute him for it. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, obviously it's not a trade-off. Like, yeah, you can go ahead and traffic and sexually traffic kids so long as they're not in poverty. I mean, he may very well say, I was taking these kids out of poverty, $300 at a time. Well, that I would not accept. But you get the idea. I don't know how anybody can sit there and say, we need bipartisanship when this kind of stuff, close to the line now, when this kind of stuff is going on. And remember, we've heard already the story of the number of Republican colleagues who knew just what they were dealing with and what he was talking about, what he was doing. And we're like, well, you know, he's a Republican. He holds the seat. We can't do that because then something. And after all, he's a loyalist. And he fights hard for Trump, and we need him to do that. So everybody's guilty in this one, which is fine by me. Roll it all up. Take them all away. All right, where we left this off? Oh, right. So Greenberg told Stone that the letter was 8 to 10 pages and asked if it should be shortened. No, Stone replied. Use as much space as you need to tell the story fully, but be certain to include your leadership. For some reason, he separated that into two words, like as though there was a ship that the leaders owned. But to include your leadership for Trump prominently. That is, include all the things that you've done to show yourself to be a loyalist to Trump. Sure. And of course, what's Stone going to say? Oh, should you edit your blackmail material so that there's less of it in your letter? No. Use as much space as you want. I'm not going to give the letter to Trump. I'm going to put it in my files and use it to, bribe you later, or extort you later. But, here's Greenberg. This is an amazing thing, too. Greenberg is a filthy, low-life scumbag who's cheating everybody he knows, except Matt Gaetz, who I guess he's supposedly giving full dollar value in transferring the money. I mean, there's no allegation that he skims a percentage off of Gaetz's payments to him, which is amazing, considering that he's a Republican first and a criminal at that. But he's dealing honestly with Gaetz. And there's something very sad about that. He's dealing honestly with Gaetz and believes that Roger Stone is dealing honestly with him. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I didn't mean to make him into a sympathetic figure. Although, I mean, I don't have any sympathy for him, and I can't relate to him, and I can't empathize with him. I can empathize with the idea of thinking that you're dealing with people fairly and honestly, but not in the middle of sex trafficking. At that point, you kind of have to believe that everybody's out to get you. But he didn't, and I guess that's one of the reasons why his sex trafficking career was so short. Kids, if you want to make it in the sex trafficking business or any other illegal undertaking, you got to believe that there's no honor among thieves. I'm giving out too much criminology advice today. Greenberg almost immediately responded that he had, quote, killed himself for Trump. And would that he had. We would be in a lot less trouble. Or Matt Gaetz would be in a lot less trouble. And I've killed myself. And again, here, this time, again, screws it up and separates it into two words. I've killed myself for Matt, he said. And that, too, Matt probably also wishing you had killed yourself, in fact. The letter went through multiple drafts, none of which caught these spelling errors or syntactical errors, and detailed Greenberg's encounters with Gaetz, but it also focused on Greenberg's early support of Trump's run in 2016, such as posting a Super Trump highway billboard on Interstate 4. A version of the letter actually includes the image Greenberg used for the billboard. On November 20th, 2020, and it was probably him holding chicks in bikinis or whatever, Trump, that is. On November 20th, 2020, Stone told Greenberg he had received, quote, the document, and would show it to the team that, quote, got me my commutation. Very interesting. Same lawyers or what? I don't know. I will review it with them and give you a budget. This is very doable, and the time is now, Stone wrote, who later denied that, I didn't take any money or ask for any. An update from Stone came just after midnight on December 8th. Your thing, the document, but not the other thing. Your thing is being looked at. You wish. And I will have an answer by Saturday as to whether you have a viable shot for justice. Justice. F you. And how to go about it. Thank you so much, Roger, Greenberg replied. I am very thankful to you. I pray that the Lord will help. Oh, baby, I pray the Lord will help too. Boy, do I pray the Lord will help with this situation. 3 lightning bolts in the right places. In fact, if they could get together close enough for one photo, 1 lightning bolt would probably do the trick. Just want to keep costs down for the Lord on this one. Anything. And it doesn't have to be lightning. It could be being torn apart by wild dogs. It could be falling in an alligator pit, into a wood chipper, or down a well. 3 of my really favorite methods of dispatching people in Fantasyland. Wow. Imagine all the things we've imagined already, and then saying, you know what, I should put God in here. I pray the Lord will help. It's Friday. It's nearly Shabbat, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be difficult for me. I am going to, I got, like, if I should I even attend, sir? I feel sullied. Do I have to go through some sort of ritual purification before I go? Can I pray tonight to the same God that Greenberg thought he was invoking to get out of his sex trafficking charges by paying super perv Roger Stone, probably to pay off super perv Donald Trump, evangelical hero, for a pardon? I don't know what to do. I have to straighten this out. He used a word that's, got me so confused. Lord, tell me, please. I've been trying to be a good person. Do I get the same consideration, or do better or less, or what? I don't know how much on balance, but as between Joel Greenberg and me, God, how am I doing? I mean, I thought you'd think I'd be doing great. But if I'm on the bubble, or like, well, on the whole scale of things, there's not a whole lot separate. Well, I mean, the scale going from, Mother Teresa to Hitler, let's say, you're pretty close to Greenberg. I don't understand. How am I close? Well, there's gradations and everything. But I've done any of these things. Nothing. I never even considered any of this stuff. That's crazy. Well, it's actually, a crowded band, honestly. And there's a lot of people. So then there's a good amount of separation, and I can see it, but, well, I mean, are you entertaining his prayer? I entertain all prayers. But, shouldn't this one really be stopped at the front office? There's no reason to schedule an appointment on this one, is there? I don't know. Well, you do suffer from a bit of a conceit that you think it's time for me to schedule an appointment on yours. Well, that's true. Aha. Well, see, there's the difference between you and Ron Johnson. You can consider these things. I guess so. So, look, you're doing well enough. I don't think I need to intervene in your life. And I won't be intervening in Greenberg's life either. So what's the big deal? Anybody can ask, right? I guess so. It's a little infuriating. Anyway, what else has he prayed for? I will sacrifice to the Aqua Buddha. Anything. I pray that the Lord will help. And I wonder whether he thought Stone would be impressed by that. I remain optimistic and will wait to hear back from you. Stone quickly sought to dampen expectations surrounding the whole pardon circus. There is no way God is going to help you, sir. I don't think he comes out and says that, but anyway. This is treacherous territory, by which he means treacherous like dangerous in that sense, but the root is treachery. It is treacherous territory, especially where you're involved in all this, with a lot of different players such as Jared and Giuliani playing a hand. Oh, Giuliani angle in this. I mean, Jared, we've been bashing him for days, but I love the implication. I think Stone is just trying to get Jared and Giuliani in trouble here, but maybe. Anyway, this is treacherous territory with a lot of different players such as Jared and Giuliani playing a hand. Both, Jared's very wealthy. You can't bribe him with $250K. He's going to need a lot more than that. Stone wrote, I guess. He didn't write the last part about how much money they would need, but the bit about being treacherous and Jared and Giuliani playing a hand, presumably referring to Trump advisor Jared Kushner, you think? And the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. He meant Jared Jewelers and Andrew Giuliani, I'm sure, are playing a hand in all this. I have two things I'm trying to get done. Sit tight. One of them is have sex with a 17-year-old. On December 21st, Greenberg told Stone that government investigators were pressuring him to cooperate. The FBI, DOJ, Secret Service, and a bunch of people from D.C. have repeatedly made attempts to meet with and it says sick afterwards, meet with me lately. I have declined, but they are definitely ramping up pressure. See, they should have sent the 17-year-old girl to meet with you. Then you wouldn't have declined. They want me to flip, he continued. They have made offers which I've declined. He doesn't decline a lot, to be honest. I even fired my lawyers this week because they tried to convince me to cooperate and that a pardon was impossible. They were right. Greenberg then revealed to Stone that his former lawyers were aware of the whole story regarding Matt Gaetz's role. My lawyers that I fired know the whole story about MG's involvement. They know he paid me to pay the girls and that he and I both had sex with the girl who was underage. So, naturally, they think That is my golden ticket, Greenberg wrote. And while I have not had any communications with MG, he absolutely has to know that the sex charge they hit me with would be what they hit him with, Greenberg continued. A distressed Greenberg told Stone that he felt abandoned by his allies, but emphasized that Gates, who was like a son to the President of the United States, and remember, Gates thinks, father-son relationships are easy to come by. His adopted son Nestor, by the way, who was about the age of the girl he was paying to have sex with. That just struck me. How interesting. Anyway, he's like a son to the President of the United States, and you don't know how right you are. Look at how many girls he's trafficking, sex trafficking with, and paying for sex, including underage girls. He may very well be like a son to the President of the United States. Well, anyway, he emphasized that Gates, who was like a son to the president, could save him. One conversation with POTUS, and he can get this done, and it all goes away. Again, imagine thinking that the Lord was going to help you and that true justice would prevail. The president could make this all go away. Remember, again, can I just remind everybody that the existence of the presidential pardon power is to do justice where injustice has been done, in the opinion of the president. Somebody improperly sentenced or wrongly convicted of a crime that, it's a technicality means that they can't otherwise quickly correct this thing or whatever, or society has come to believe that this is no longer ought to be criminalized or whatever. This guy's a sex trafficker having sex with children, and he's like, well, the president should use his constitutional power. Honest to God, again, invoking things you have no right to touch. God's going to help me. The Constitution wants me off the hook for this. The President of the United States should use his power to do right under God and equal justice to just not charge me with sex trafficking. That's amazing. I'll continue on. One conversation with POTUS, and he gets this done, and it all goes away. Greenberg said that while he had discussed pardons with Gates's lawyer, he had not heard a reply and would have to do what's best for me and my family after Trump left office. You think MG is going to come visit me in prison, he said? Then proposed the $250,000 Bitcoin deposit. Why Bitcoin? Because you'll never get caught with Bitcoin because it's untraceable, just like Signal. But I took screenshots. So I'll take screenshots of my Bitcoin transaction, and that way, so this guy was always going to a jail, regardless. Stone replied that he had considered those points, but, quote, cannot push too hard because of the nonsense surrounding pardons, like the idea that we should be giving them out to sex traffickers because they loved Trump so much while they were effing teenagers. As Trump neared his final days in office, he signaled an intent to issue a wave of pardons, and reports at the time suggested legal reprieve could be had for the right price. Stone communicated with Greenberg about his efforts to navigate the heavy traffic of pardon seekers. On December 23rd, Trump pardoned Stone for his crimes from the 2019 conviction. The next day, on Christmas Eve, Stone acknowledged to Greenberg that he was having difficulty with the Gates dimension. It is hard for me to understand why MG would do nothing. Yes, he is potentially damaged if the matter goes forward, Stone wrote. The three men, Greenberg, Stone, and Gates, all shared a friendship dating back several years. Gee whiz, I wonder on what basis. And Stone apparently couldn't figure out why Gates wouldn't help Greenberg get a pardon. But on the morning of January 13th, Greenberg received this text from Stone. Today is the day. We will know by the end of the day. I think you sent me some document, but it disappeared. I hope you were prepared to wire me $250,000 because I am feeling confident. There was only 1 week left in the Trump presidency. It's unclear if money was ever exchanged, but Greenberg offered to pay extra if Stone could, in fact, get him a pardon. If you can get this done today, I'll add another $50K, Greenberg texted Stone. In a subsequent message, Stone wrote that White House lawyer Pat Cipollone, oh my God, I'm sure he's dying that his name is included in this, but, he may be a criminal filth as well. You never know. But White House lawyer Pat Cipollone had taken Greenberg's name out of the list of hundreds of people who might be pardoned. Oh my gosh, he had integrity? Cipollone did not respond to multiple requests for comment Thursday, but according to 3 people familiar with the matter, Greenberg's name repeatedly made it to the Trump White House for a presidential pardon. The Daily Beast was shown an image of one such list, and Greenberg's name and a favorable mini profile were indeed included. I should like to see this favorable mini profile and compare it with the description we have heard here. We'll be right back. Hi everybody, it's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take, or read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Over the break, I happened to see and retweet this bit of information from Mike Gerke, who was retweeting never a dull moment in the Republican primary here in the gubernatorial race in Virginia. This noticed from Blue Virginia, retweeting, I guess, a tip that they got from American Bridge. American Bridge having tweeted this out. Let's see, screenshot of it here. American Bridge, if you're the person, Amanda Chase, Virginia, this is her Twitter account, Amanda Chase VA. Amanda Chase is a state senator here Republican state senator here in Virginia running for governor. The total lunatic. She's made our report in the past, the one who's been basically enclosed in a lucite box while she works in the Senate because she refuses to mask, and also a gun loon as well. And that's her chief lunacy. And therefore, no surprise that they are asking, if you're the person that Amanda Chase pulled a gun on yesterday while driving, please get in touch. We'd love to talk. So, having an exciting life out there is Amanda Chase, as always. But this is very on brand for her, so I don't know if it's actually going to hurt. Let's see. By the way, also another thing I was checking up on yesterday, when we were reading about the service of the warrant for the search of Giuliani's places, they mentioned that his executive assistant's place was also searched, but they didn't name who that was, and I was wondering whether it was our good friend Christiane Allen, and no evidence of that still. I just checked the news feed on her, and actually she's disappeared from the news, which is good for an executive assistant to do, but she was out for getting her name in the news, so I don't know why. But the last report I have on her, I don't know if we noted this in passing perhaps at the time, but a December 4th report also from the Daily Beast under the headline, Rudy Giuliani's spokesperson, maybe a different role for her, spokesperson, tested positive for COVID-19. So just in case you were wondering whether there were more people who deserved to get COVID-19 actually getting it, the answer is, at least back in December, the answer was yes. Christiane Allen got it, and you don't have to feel guilty about it because she didn't die, but she did have more than mild symptoms. And it was a big deal because she first began feeling ill, according to the report, on November 20th, a few days after Giuliani's now infamous press conference at Republican National Committee headquarters in November, and she was present for that, and it was believed to be another super spreader event. And Christiane Allen, young person who should by all rights and Republican rhetoric have been immune from the whole thing anyway, instead caught the virus and came down with it. But Giuliani's son Andrew also reportedly tested positive after the event as well. And it's amazing that none of them have had more serious problems. But she's been out of action or out of the news anyway since then. I don't know if I don't know what she's up to. Who cares? She should be steering clear of all these people if she doesn't want to get trafficked into a sex ring, I guess, unless it's too late for that. But anyway, where were we with this? Yes, right. The administration was actually being handed lists for pardon consideration that had Greenberg's name on it. So somebody was doing something, whether it was Matt Gaetz or Roger Stone or someone else, I don't know. But the lists were getting there, and Pat Cipollone was taking his name out. Like, he's a scumbag too, but I guess I would have said, yeah, that makes some sense. I mean, I don't think he's fully scumbagged out the way Greenberg and Stone and Gaetz are. He's partisan, but I think he still took the role of White House counsel seriously enough that he was taking this guy's name off the list. Administration officials, it says here, swiftly shot down Greenberg's application, however, and several senior White House officials at the time said they were not even aware that Stone was involved in a behind the scenes maneuvering. I'm sure he was hiding his role because he was hoping to pocket the $250,000 for himself on that. But as Stone explained it in a January 30th text, a full 10 days after Trump left office, Gaetz was partly to blame. What I don't understand is why MJ, which I guess he meant MG, would not help me at all and actually told me not to help you, which I tried to do anyway. In the end, it would not have mattered. Cipollone killed everything we wanted to get done, and that includes stuff MG wanted. Stone wrote, immediately clarifying that MJ was a typo and he meant MG. Okay, he actually said not to help me? Wow, Greenberg replied. This is the first realization that it's possible that there is, in fact, no honor among thieves to Joel. However, of course, it could be a lie, and Stone may either never have sought Gaetz' help at all, or Gaetz may have been very helpful, but if he says he's helpful and it succeeds, then Gaetz will get or be entitled to or think he'll be entitled to some of the money. I don't know. I'm not certain what motivates him here, but that's what he tells him. And so he says, okay, he said he's actually not going to help me. Wow. If you repeat it, you're really going to hurt me, Stone warned. So don't confront Gaetz and say, Stone told me you wouldn't help. And now that's like a signal that that's a lie and Gaetz knows nothing about it. But you'll really hurt me if you tell Gaetz that, so be sure to keep that to yourself. I won't, Roger. I don't and haven't talked to him. I won't, Greenberg said. He's loyal. Stone acknowledged Thursday night that there may be copies of correspondence between me and Mr. Greenberg, but he questioned whether they were complete, unedited, or accurate. I made no formal or informal effort in regard to a pardon for Mr. Greenberg, Stone said. I recall requesting a document explaining his prosecution, the details of which I was unfamiliar with. I never requested or received a penny from Mr. Greenberg. I got Bitcoin. I recall him offering to retain me, and I declined. To be clear, I did advocate pardons for a number of people who I had been it's a typo here too, who had been unfairly treated by the justice system and was compensated by no one for doing so. Urge you to be very careful, Stone said at the end of his text. I will take any appropriate legal action in the event that you publish anything that is false or defamatory. Sounds to me like you have been presented some kind of cut and paste record. So, of course, everybody immediately wonders whether he was planting the whole thing and just trying to embarrass journalists into thinking they had a hot scoop and a confession, and then he would reveal, no, it's all fabricated and I got you, which I guess would mean something to somebody, and it wouldn't damage his reputation any. But whatever. I just wish everybody would take him at his word and just say, yeah, he's a filthy scumbag and we should put him in jail forever. And, but it was all a joke. I fabricated all of that. All right, well, then you should be in jail for that. So, I don't know. Take your pick, I guess. What a story. Anyway, so there's more out there on the horizon. I said we would get to the UV light thing in a few minutes, and now I guess it's time to do that. By the way, I think, I'll explain what the UV light thing is all about. It has nothing to do with Matt Gaetz or Joel Greenberg, and quite honestly, if you put anything of theirs or any part of their office, or Giuliani's office probably, under UV light, you're going to be very, very upset. So don't do it. Do not, as I did on Twitter here, conflate those two stories, because that's the worst possible outcome. Okay, what do we got here? I happened to see, I think, Joshua Holland tweeting this story around from ArizonaCentral.com, which is the online version of the Arizona newspapers, the Arizona Republic, reporting the story of the fake audit of the Maricopa County balloting that the state Senate Republicans have ordered. Greg mentioned this to us when we spoke last on Monday, and you remember it was very dubious and very suspicious, the whole thing. Basically, unilaterally, the Republicans in the majority in the state Senate, in the Arizona legislature, launched their own investigation in which they accused, of having perpetrated massive fraud in the Maricopa County elections, and they'll prove it. And therefore, their results will later be and should be extrapolated to the whole country, and blah, blah, blah. Trump really won, the routine. And what should be concerning to everyone, of course, is that, one, it's just the Republicans using their raw majority to start this quote-unquote investigation. It's not in any way nonpartisan or using outside experts or bipartisan in any fashion. They simply had a majority vote, and as part of it, they said, we're also not even going to conduct the forensic, quote-unquote forensic part of this analysis ourselves. We're going to outsource that part of the audit to someone else, which they can do, but P.S., they decided to hire somebody who is a prominent voter fraud conspiracy theorist and Trump fan, and is pretty sure that he knows the answer to the question of was there massive fraud in Maricopa County and how to find it. So they gave it to this organization known as, Cyber Ninjas, though Cyber Ninjas have no election experience and have never audited anything even remotely resembling ballots from an official election. Anyway, they have since gone out and subcontracted out and hired a bunch of people to conduct their audit. And the photo of these people that accompanies the Arizona Central piece is kind of startling all by itself. It's basically a bunch of senior citizens and others looking for part-time work, all now wearing matching red T-shirts, presumably with the company logo on it, and shining the ballots under ultraviolet light. And most of the story is about how everybody's trying to guess what the F are they doing and what do they hope to gain by shining ultraviolet light on ballots. And no one can think of a real reason why they would do that. They, I'm sure, have a secret reason, which will be revealed later when they reveal to us that 50 bazillion legal votes for Trump were not counted. And although ordinarily that would only award him Arizona's electoral votes, which might not even change the outcome, I don't think. But really, if you think about it, they should be distributed among many states, not just Arizona, because the Lord wants to help Joel Greenberg, so anything's possible. So therefore, he won the election. I don't know what the thinking is. But they're all shining these lights on there. And, as somebody pointed out, so Cyber Ninjas, you're saying, has a staff exclusively made up of senior citizens? That seems unlikely. But they are subcontractors to this outside contractor. What caught my attention about it was the blurb being tweeted around from Arizona Central identified used the headline to identify these people as Arizona election auditors running ballots under UV light. And those aren't Arizona election auditors. Those are subcontractors to the very dubious Cyber Ninja contractors hired by the partisan Senate panel, Republican Senate panel, who claims to be empowered to run an audit, which they really aren't. They're not state election workers. They're some set of people that are completely different from that. And then, basically the Arizona Republic should not make that mistake, but maybe they're just Republican leaning enough to want to make that mistake. But I'll read you the story. Arizona election auditors are running ballots under UV light. What could they be looking for? Asks Jen, what's the name here? Fifield, Fifield, Fifield. I don't know. You tell me. Fifield is what we're going to call her today. While there hasn't been much transparency from the contractors attempting to audit Maricopa County's general election results, they are shining a light on the ballots. But why? There are theories such as the workers are searching for watermarks or yellow dots or fold marks and certain fibers, but no clear answers. Each one of those options is explained below, by the way. Workers hired by the Arizona Senate's main contractor, Cyber Ninjas. Go ahead and look them up. I'd be interested to know what we know about those guys. Are shining what appears to be an ultraviolet flashlight on each ballot. This observation is based on views from the audit live stream at azaudit.org and journalists who now have access inside the Arizona Veterans Memorial Coliseum where the audit is happening. Cyber Ninjas told the Senate that along with fully recounting the nearly 2.1 million ballots cast in the county, part of their scope of work would be physically inspecting the ballots to, quote, identify any ballots that are suspicious and potentially counterfeit, unquote. The plan did not include any details for how they would do this or what exactly they would be looking for. And by the way, I guess some question as to whether does Cyber Ninjas have any idea how to tell when a ballot is counterfeit, or are they just making that up as they go along? Although reporters have now had a closer look at what the workers are doing to the ballots to examine them, it's still not clear what they are doing. Ken Burnett, the Senate's liaison to the audit, told media on Tuesday he didn't know what the workers were doing with the flashlights, even though he has been observing the audit since it began. The CEO of Runbeck Election Services, the company that orders the ballot paper and prints ballots for the county, told the Arizona Republic on Wednesday that there are no tracking marks or watermarks on the paper they used in this election. Maricopa County's election department, who should be running the audit if anyone is running it, but they're not, also said there are no watermarks on the paper. Cyber Ninjas has been reluctant to share procedures of the audit, claiming they are a trade secret, which should not be possible. I mean, I'm sure they're getting away with it, but just like we should have only open source programming on any electronic voting machines so that you can't hide the algorithm under the guise of trade secret, no, you shouldn't be allowed to have secret auditing processes because they're a trade secret either. Maricopa County Superior Court Judge Daniel Martin said Wednesday that the company must talk about details of how it is doing the work in open court. That's linked to another article I'm somewhat curious about, but probably won't get a chance to read today. Martin is considering a lawsuit brought by the Arizona Democratic Party and Maricopa County Supervisor Steve Gallardo, who sought to stop the recount. An Arizona Republic reporter observed Tuesday that after the ballots were counted, they went to an inspection table with 3 people. One of the people held the ballot inside a box set up on the table and took a UV flashlight and shined it on particular areas of the ballot. As the Republic observed, the ballot was being examined in the middle and on one side in particular. Lisa Shackett, a Phoenix resident who said she served as an official observer on Monday and Tuesday, and how official could they be? I mean, she makes a good point, but I'm just curious whether they really have official observers for an unofficial audit. But okay, an official observer said that she questioned the use of the flashlights. Shackett, a registered Democrat, said she was skeptical of the audit from the start. Shackett said the workers told her the flashlights were being used to reveal yellow dots and yellow fibers on the ballot paper. She said she got up close and tried to see the yellow marks. She did not see any yellow, she said. It just seemed like they stopped looking when they felt like it, because sometimes the flashlight barely glanced at the paper, she said. The workers may have been referring to something called printer stenography, which is a digital watermark that some color laser printers and copiers leave on pages that allow people to trace back where the document was printed. But Jeff Ellington, the CEO of Runbeck Election Systems, the Phoenix-based election services company that prints the county's ballot and purchases the ballot paper, said the HP printers that they use to print ballots do not use printer stenography, and no yellow dots or colors were applied. Ellington said there is nothing about the paper that is unique to the county or traceable. I wish I could figure out what they're looking for in the UV lights, Ellington said. And in fact, he has tried. Ellington said, out of curiosity this week, Runbeck employees ran the ballot paper that they had under a UV flashlight. Nothing appeared. Shortly after the November election, QAnon conspiracy theorists claimed that former President Donald Trump and others secretly watermarked mail-in ballots to prove fraud. A USA Today fact check and others found the claims false because mail-in ballots are designed by local governments and ordered from private printers, not secretly watermarked by the Trump administration or Trump campaign. With the lack of clarity about what procedures are taking place, rumors are running rampant on social media platforms. One was that workers were checking the ballots for fingerprints, but that has not been confirmed, nor has the idea of why fingerprints would be significant. Another is that the workers are checking to see whether the mail-in ballots have been folded to show if they were really sent in the mail. That, I guess, could be something, but I don't know whether UV light really helps you in detecting that or not. But that's one of the things I guess you'll have to discuss in court at some point. But of course, in the meantime, the narrative is taking place anyway and taking shape. And Republicans will just believe this, and I guess other people won't. That has led to a lot of questions that others have posed just in terms of, well, people have been asking me in the last couple of days, why is it that the House Democrats, let's say, haven't simply used their majority to establish a select committee to investigate the January 6th riots? Why are they still continuing to try to put together some sort of bipartisan official committee or a committee that might have outside members or something like that, a commission of outside members to do this investigation? And my guess is, there's all sorts of problems with simply doing it unilaterally, one of which is on display here in the so-called audit happening in Arizona. I guess that they don't want to go down the same path. But then I'm sure there are others who say, well, why aren't we? Republicans are getting everything they want out of this thing and paying no particular societal price or political price for doing something that's so obviously partisan and crazy. So why shouldn't we do the same? And it's kind of hard to argue about that. And I've been having some discussion with some people who say, well, why don't they just do it that way? And my guess is that they don't want to look as dumb as the Arizona State Senate looks conducting this thing with cyber ninjas. But on the other hand, the local papers aren't really reporting it as being invalid on its face from the beginning, as they should be anyway. So what the hell? Why don't you give it a try anyway? And I guess it's a good question. Hey, I don't have a particularly good answer for it, other than they just don't want to get involved in stuff like this. All right, moving on from there to other peripheral issues that we can cram in before exiting for the day. My own theory, now I'm reminded of it from last night because I see it being retweeted this morning. My theory on Giuliani. I think I picked this up this too. It's a Giuliani tweet from last night, and I think that is the one that maybe Josh Marshall or someone else was tweeting around. But his claims from last night about the whole investigation read as follows. The DOJ in late 2019 covertly obtained access to my iCloud and never notified me. Now, mind you, of course, in late 2019, the DOJ would be the Trump Barr DOJ. But I'm sure he's trying to make a deep state claim here. And I think that's what Josh might have been talking about, is how convenient the deep state conspiracy theory is for explaining away why the Trump Barr Department of Justice supposedly would have authorized secretly tapping into Rudy Giuliani's iCloud accounts. But that's his claim here. The DOJ in late 2009 covertly obtained access to my iCloud and never notified me. They invaded the attorney-client relationships as we were defending the president against a phony impeachment. Those prosecutors violated the laws, not me. Those prosecutors violated the laws, not me. If, again, nothing is done, you could be next. But my own personal theory on this is that there's every chance that the Department of Justice, if they did authorize accessing his iCloud, did not do so in a way that necessarily violates the Fourth Amendment. They may very well have been handed the password. In fact, there's every chance that super cyber sleuth Rudy Giuliani accidentally butt tweeted the password for his iCloud out on Twitter, and everybody's got it from that. And so the DOJ or somebody else may have walked right in. This guy is an unbelievable moron and horrifically underprepared to be guarding the sorts of information he thought he had in his possession. Can you imagine if he really did have access to serious national security information because he was really working for a real president? All that information would have been in foreign hands. He's an idiot. Anyway, I don't know. I just thought I would point that out. There's at least one other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, procedure-wise, although I see we're running up against the end of the line here. But so I'll do this way. I'll bring up the Jackie Wilhelm's Talking Points memo piece, at least for your consideration over the weekend, and maybe we'll expand on it on Monday. The rules Dems could change to keep the Tom Cottons of the Senate from delaying Biden nominations confirmation. Biden noms' confirmations is the headline. For now, it's just one senator, the subheader reads, threatening to hold up a small number of nominees, but if his tactic is successful at hamstringing their partisan rival, that would be Biden, it's only a matter of time before other Republicans follow Tom Cotton's lead. So, in other words, they're basically executing the same game plan that we were asked for at the beginning of the Trump administration. What can you do procedurally to slow down, if not permanently stop, Trump's nominations to federal executive offices, essentially? And we came up with a bunch of them. It's an old playbook. It's been used before. And it's just the case that though you can no longer permanently stop those nominations from going through because of the change to the filibuster rules for executive nominations, you can delay them enough, and there are enough of them, enough nominations and positions in the executive that have to be filled, that stacked one on top of the other, you could theoretically actually eat up the entire first term of a new president and prevent them from getting everyone that they wanted in place. If not all the important ones, at least some people would still be lagging. And you could use all of the Senate's time in doing that, too, and prevent them from doing any significant damage by legislating instead. Well, now they've pulled this out, and Tom Cotton is putting it to use, which I guess is fair play. Eleanor Egan, I guess I got the authorship of this wrong, has written this up for TPM Cafe, and has some suggestions for what rules changes Dems might consider in order to deny Tom Cotton and other Republicans the ability to do this. I guess it's worth considering, although, of course, it would be brought back and used against us, I'm sure, if Donald Trump were somehow to weasel his way back into office, or someone worse were in office next time, as is frequently the case for Republicans. So I'll give that to you to chew on over the weekend. I'll take a look at it, and we'll see whether it's something we want to return to on Monday. In the meantime, we hope that Greg Dworkin's computer is back up and running and ready for him to join us on Monday. And regardless of the outcome of that situation, the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Justice Putnam follows us up next. There's got to be some important and interesting and juicy stuff that we didn't get to today because we spent so long on Matt Gaetz and his infuriating friends and perverts in his circle.
NetworksRadio.com.
I just had to say perverts again.
You have been listening to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
Well, there's this. The Trump-appointed Border Patrol chief is mad that he can't use slurs to describe immigrants anymore. And Labor Secretary Marty Walsh is supporting classifying gig workers as employees. That's good news. And the Senate Finance Committee wants to examine the Caterpillar tax probe under former AG Bill Barr's office. Crack those files open.